Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another TosCasts podcast. I have a very, very special guest on the show. It is Twill, or as you know him as This Week in Linux. Now, we were trying to have another Linux A-Team TosCasts podcast. So, in case you haven't figured it out, it is virtually impossible to have all the guests from all the different time zones on the show at the same time. So I guess you may possibly consider this a limited Linux A-Team show. But that being said, I do have Twill on the show for tonight. We will talk about Ubuntu, a little bit about Windows, and maybe whatever else comes to mind. This is basically a open forum, random topic type of discussion. I have done this before with IG, and it turned out okay. So at this time, Twill, if you would like to set up an introduction, go for it, my friend.
I don't really have a whole lot to say. Thank you very much for having me, though. It's been a long time since I've really done much on YouTube, so I've sort of gotten out of the habit myself.
Right, right. Okay, that's fine. You do work with Windows during the day, don't you?
I do, and actually, I've been working little by little to try to sort of sneak Linux-related stuff into work. As my boss is starting to realize that Windows actually costs money,
Yes.
he's starting to realize that these free and open solutions can really be a lot more useful than he thinks.
Right.
So he's been very open to the idea.
Wonderful. I know you haven't had a chance to look at the Windows 8, the CP, the consumer preview, but I
Mhm.
believe you said you took a look at the previous release, the developer's version last year, yes?
Correct. Yeah.
What did you think about it back then?
I was sort of disappointed that I wasn't using it on a tablet because it really felt that the Metro UI felt like a tablet interface to me offhand.
I would have to agree. I did take a look at the CP recently that was released at the end of last month, and to be honest, I did like what I see, what I saw. I ran it in a virtual machine, absolutely no issues running the installation. It actually ran pretty smoothly, a bit slow, but that's to be expected in a VM. Um, I looked at it, I tested it, I liked it a lot. One thing I really did like was the ability to use the super key, the button
Mhm.
that has the window logo. Super key, you hit that, and I had the immediate ability to flip between the Metro tile look to a more standard Windows 7 type of desktop without having to log in and out, as I would say in Unity and logging out to log into, say, GNOME Shell or
Mhm.
Cinnamon. So that feature was brilliant. I mean, that's strictly my observation. One thing that I did miss at the time, and I miss it even now more playing with Windows 8 in the VM, it didn't have the start button, that little simple start menu. And it didn't really bother me that much at the time. I think I made a comment like, if there's one thing that's missing is that simple start menu.
Mhm.
But now that I've had a chance to play with it more, it's like you said, it really is optimized for tablets. I mean, how do you see that? I think they should put it in there to make the
Well,
transition. Yeah.
the little bit that I used the developer preview, it actually almost felt like the start menu had been replaced entirely with that Metro UI, and
Yes.
it almost felt similar to me to using like GNOME Shell or Unity with their dash or you click a certain part of the screen or hit a certain button, and the entire screen is replaced by whatever the UI says.
Right.
In the case of GNOME Shell, you've got the full screen. You can see all of your workspaces and all of your available apps and
Right.
instances of apps, things like that. So I think that they're sort of going along the same lines UI wise, at least from where I was standing. And like I said, I have not used the consumer preview yet, but uh, it, it feels like one person took the step forward, and I don't even
Yeah.
know who did it first,
Right.
but
Right.
everybody else is sort of following suit in this UI design phase.
Yeah.
Um, I, I don't know. Like I said, I can see where they're all going, but they all do kind of feel like they need some sort of a touch interface to be a little more useful. And I thought Windows 8 was supposed to have a requirement of that, but they may have changed it in the last few months.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I know you haven't taken a look at the latest CP release of Windows 8, but could you see yourself possibly using, well, possibly buying and maybe using a Windows 8 tablet with the type of tiles, with the Metro UI? Could you see yourself using that, or maybe someone in your family?
Myself, not really.
Okay.
I personally have an Android tablet at the moment and a BlackBerry Playbook, so I have two sides of the, I guess, four-sided cube spectrum, whatever.
Sure,
Uh,
sure, sure. Yeah.
and I'm very happy with the Android interface. You know, having widgets and having very dynamic interface. I do have to say I kind of prefer the BlackBerry interface in a lot of ways, though, because of the app management
Ah,
and just the general speed that I've seen out of it, because it is a Unix-based OS
yeah.
overall. But as far as the Windows interface, I will admit I used the program called Launcher 7 on Android for a little while, and
Okay,
that's a replica of the Windows Phone interface. And it was okay. It
okay.
felt very limiting, kind of like using the iPhone OS. It
Yeah,
works, it gets the job done, but it feels very limiting. It feels lacks a little customization, in my opinion.
right. There are a couple of I believe there are two third-party add-ons or extensions for Windows 8. One I believe is StarDock that does give you the Start Orb,
Hmm,
but it doesn't give you the traditional Start menu like Windows Vista or Windows 7.
right.
There's another, right, yeah. Let's see, the other one that I did download and install now, and I think if Microsoft is going to do something, they should do something like that. I believe it's called VStart, VISTART. Now, when you click that, classic Start Orb, it actually gives you the more traditional Windows Vista or Windows 7 Start menu, submenu look. I believe that's what's missing because, for someone like me or maybe someone like yourself, we can all get used to the hot corners and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But the normal mom and pop consumer, when they take a look at that live in a store, they're probably going to say, well, the tiles look good, but I don't want a tablet. Let me see the desktop. That may come as a shock.
Exactly.
uh,
It's just a major radical change in the way that you have to sort of think about the OS.
right.
And
Yes.
I think it's just going to take a change in the way people think overall. I mean, it's a paradigm shift that's on the way in the way we interact with our desktops and our tablets, and maybe they'll become a little more similar. I mean, the Ubuntu on Android thing that's on its way is sort of taking a step in that direction, having one device that you can use for everything, and it has all the interfaces built into it. Uh, Sort of makes you wonder what the next generation is going to be like.
Boy, the technology is moving so fast. The change is so rapid. I mean, it was
Mhm.
just really, till a short year ago that we had like Unity, and then what Gnome 3 came out about the same time, and it,
Yeah,
and the community, if I recall, most of the folks didn't like it,
and they still don't.
and they still don't.
Yeah, I'm seeing posts on Google Plus every single day. You know,
Really,
why did you make Unity this way? Why, you know, we hate Unity. Why are you doing this? But it's really, I think, just a matter of the people adapting to it and becoming accustomed to it. And
yeah,
Unity is still very young product.
yes,
Have you played with the 12.04 beta yet?
yeah. I
I think I saw
actually
you say something. You were downloading it.
Yes, right before we came on, I just finished downloading the beta one, I believe. I actually had the alpha, I believe it was the alpha 2 running, and you know what? I mean, sure, there are the normal bugs, but in terms of it being stable, like in terms of it not crashing or freezing, I was amazed. And well, in fact, I liked the Alpha 2 so much that I tried to do, well, I did, but try to compare Ubuntu 12.04 Alpha 2 with Windows 7. And I think I said it actually, even though it's an alpha, granted, maybe it's kind of silly, but I thought it held up pretty well against Windows 7. I liked what I saw. There were a couple extra features such as the video lens. Let's see, what was the other one? I'm trying to think top of my head. Oh, the HUD display,
Yeah.
which is another search function. I thought as a Windows dual booter, those are cool features. Now, granted, it's still alpha, now it's a beta. It's not finalized, but if the Ubuntu tech guys can get this right, this can be, I believe, a realistic challenge, to the
Right.
Windows desktop, but they have to get it right the first time. Meaning, once they release it as final, you have got to eliminate almost, if it's possible, almost 100% of the bugs.
Right.
No crashes, no, gee, that bug wasn't there in the last release, but it's in there now. Like, you know what I mean. So,
Hmm.
but in terms of the alpha too, I loved it. I loved it so much. I downloaded the beta. Um, but
Well, and
yeah,
along that same vein, with Microsoft working on Windows 8 and pushing in that direction, Windows 7, I will admit here, Windows 7 is a good OS. I've used it at work every day for quite a while now and haven't really had any major issues out of it.
fair
Um,
enough. Yeah,
with Windows 8 being such a major rethinking of the desktop, they do stand that potential, just like they did with Windows Vista, to drive a lot of users away.
right.
And there are plenty of other people there to pick up the pieces, and Ubuntu
Right.
and all the other Linux
Yeah.
distros could be those people to step up and say, "Hey, by the way, we're here, we're free, uh, we're
Yes.
open.
Yes.
Come try it. Just give it a shot."
I would have to agree. Funny that you mentioned that uh, on a related train of thought here. One of the YouTubers, I won't mention his name, but he's very famous. He's been around for years. He had his dad on the show. I think his dad's
I
name is Joe.
I saw it, but I didn't see the video.
Okay, okay. Well, it's
Yeah.
something like dad tries Windows 8 for the first time, or some silly topic like that. So, so his dad, I think it's Joe,
Hmm.
he's at the terminal looking at Windows 8, and of course the son is off camera, right? Okay.
Hmm.
So his dad's playing with it. He's looking at the tiles, and I think he said, "Well, the tiles look cool," and they do. I mean, at least I think so.
Yeah.
He was able to get to switch over to the more traditional desktop Windows 7, and you got the wallpaper and
Yeah.
nothing else. So he's playing with it. So, well, let's see. Is it this? He's hovering around the super bar at the bottom, right? He's playing with that. Oh, is this it? No, that's the clock. And where is it? Is it this and this? And his son's staying quiet just to see maybe if that,
Hmm.
because that's pretty sharp, I think, trying to figure it out. Well, about, I'm going to say 5 minutes into it, Dad says, "Who makes this?" Son replies, "Microsoft." Dad replies, "Are they trying to drive me to Mac?" Classic answer.
Yes.
Uh, Honest answer, I completely understand. And as much as I like Windows 8, what I see, I'd have to agree. If the simple start button would have been there, well,
Hmm.
that's all they got to do. That's all they have to do. Say, hey,
The
we know it's a shock, but try this. So, yeah.
the funny thing is, I think in the developer preview, they had the start button. It just didn't do the same thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. It's been a while. This is like last September, but I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it just allowed you to switch back and forth.
Yeah, it went to the Metro UI, and then if you hit escape, I think it would come back.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've used it. I really do
Okay.
need to take some time since I probably will have to use it at work eventually. Although,
Yeah.
how long has Windows 7 been out now?
Well, believe it or not, since what's 2009, it's been 3 years already, hasn't it?
Yeah, we just switched to it at work. Yeah,
Well, it's like you said, and you're honest, it does work. It's worked for
yeah,
me.
it
And
gets the job done.
look, for folks out there who follow my channel, I call it as I see it. And when Unity first came out, it was God, the some of the comments. Gnome Shell, same thing. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And I was
Change is bad. Change is scary.
and I was like, well, maybe it's my stupid Windows brain, but it doesn't look that bad. Granted, it was new, it was buggy. It's a big change, but I liked what I saw, at least visually. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to make a final judgment on this till at least, a year or two down the line.
Hmm.
And if I recall, I downloaded the very first release of Unity, installed it in my HP multimedia laptop, and you know what? It ran fine. Yes, not as customizable. I do miss the ability to, let's see, I miss the ability to right click on the panel bar and add the applets. I do
Exactly.
miss that.
Yes.
I missed that a lot. In
Yeah.
fact, I said something to Mr. Poe, can you please bring those back? And he says, well, maybe not now, but I missed the ability to take the Unity bar, which kind of looks like the Windows bar. Yeah, I mean, like with all respect to Linux, I missed the ability to move that to the top or bottom.
Exactly.
just simple things that I think that's what the community was saying. And they were saying,
Hmm.
wait a minute, Linux is supposed to be customizable. And here we are locked into a GUI that's, well, that's locked. I understood that, but I didn't think Unity then or now deserved all the hellish comments that it's been getting. But that's me as a dual booter. I understand that if Linux isn't customizable, then perhaps for some, it's not truly Linux.
Hmm.
Maybe. How does you see it?
I do sort of agree with that, and at the same time, like I was saying before, the Unity and GNOME Shell are all still very young products, sort
Yes.
of. I
Right.
mean, how long has GNOME itself been around? It's been around for
Wow.
many years now,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and GNOME 2 has been around for less years, but still quite a few years at this point.
Yes.
So I think, and actually, the GNOME 3 side of all this might be the real determining factor. It is so configurable and extensible by means of JavaScript and HTML
Okay.
that we will probably see some major improvements in terms of the extensions in the next few years. There's already a site on the GNOME site, the extensions.gnome.org, I think, where you can go and see all of the different ways you can customize your UI just by clicking a button on their site.
Yes.
So when you think, I can change the look and feel of the UI that I'm using just by going to this website and hitting a couple buttons.
Right.
Once you wrap that in an app and put it in every default installation of GNOME, you've immediately got that customizability you
Yes.
need.
Right. Well, there's just a few extra steps involved versus how it was before, but
Right.
it is a change, it is an adjustment, but I mean, look, as far as the diehard fans of the old gnome. I mean,
Mhm.
I understand. At least I think I do. But like I said, I enjoy using Unity and GNOME Shell. I'm able to log in and out and choose which desktop environment I want.
Right.
I understand that it's not quite as user friendly or customizable as the previous. One thing that just popped into my mind with GNOME Shell, I don't know what the developers were thinking. Maybe they thought it was cool. But do you recall testing GNOME 3 or GNOME Shell and there was no shutdown button?
Yes.
You had to hover. Now stay with me with
And
this.
hold alt. Yeah.
Hover, do this, do that. And I
Mhm.
counted the total number of steps. 6 steps just to show. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous. And I
That
think the
was
reasoning behind it was
yeah.
we're getting into a place where a lot of systems aren't being shut down regularly. They're being suspended, hibernated, or just left to run all the time.
Okay.
But when you go and make broad scale assumptions like that we don't really need a shutdown button
Uh,
anymore, that's a little bit far fetched.
can you imagine if Microsoft did
Yeah.
that in Windows 7? The jokes flying
I,
around YouTube, and they
I've
would
always
deserve it.
giggled at the
Yeah.
Microsoft way of click start to shut down.
Well, now we appreciate it more, right? But
Exactly. It's at least it was there.
at least it was there, and you know
Yeah.
what? It was dummies proof, as I like to
Yes.
say. But yeah,
Yes.
that I mean that was dumb. I hate to say it, but I mean, like with all due respect to
Huh?
developers, I know there's a lot of hard work going into it. I understand that. Another thing that kind of irked me was that there's a wonderful built-in. I don't think it's in Unity. It's in GNOME Shell. A wonderful, really brilliant built-in screen recorder by holding what? Control Alt Shift R,
I
right?
think so. Yeah.
And it actually does a terrific job of recording what you're doing, but there's no sound.
Exactly.
And the only conclusion I could think of was the developers are big fans of silent movies.
Yes.
So, but I'm like, come
Wondering if they're
on.
going to put in that film grain and everything to make it
Yeah, I
feel
was waiting
dated.
for the graining, for the jumping, the sloppiness of the screen, or the jumping of the screen. And I'm like, guys, what are you thinking? Now, granted, it's young, like you said, it's a work in progress. But I thought, come on. Anyway, that's my rant on that. But I still enjoy using, and well, in fact, in two of my machines, in my desktop that I'm using now, I do dual boot Windows 7 and Unity and log in and out to GNOME Shell, which looks great. And my other laptop upstairs, my laptop that I keep in my bedroom when I'm in the mood to just browse, it works. It's stable. So I'll give credit where credit is due. But sometimes there's the old cliche saying, use the KISS method, keep it simple.
Mhm.
Don't it's okay to experiment, it's okay to branch out, but think of the human being first. How the normal person, I don't want 5 or 6 steps to shut down the thing. Come on,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my little rant on that. I defended Unity then, and now GNOME Shell. I like what I see. Windows 8, I like what I see. It has not been finalized. So, Microsoft, if anyone is listening who has a little bit of say so, unless you want a lot of folks to go to Mac, bring back the start button. That's all I'm going to say. So, just keep it simple. Just add it.
I thought I
And
remembered somebody saying there might actually be a way to revert to that old classic start menu.
uh, I think I saw something briefly in one of these random blogs. You may be right. I mean, if worse comes to worse, once the final version is released, I suppose you can add that third-party app to
Right.
add this, but you shouldn't have to. It's Microsoft. It's supposed to be for us Windows dummies. Come on. Anyway, that's how I see it. Okay, we can wrap this up here in a few minutes. What's your primary OS at home?
My primary OS at home is usually Ubuntu 11.10.
Okay,
I do actually still have a Windows 7 installation, but I don't use it all that. I play a couple of games here and there on it, but usually it's Ubuntu because I can do my work in it.
okay,
I actually have a MacBook Pro that I run Ubuntu 12.04 on and OS 10 if I'm just browsing. I mean, my wife uses OS 10, she uses
okay,
Windows 7. We just sort of, use
okay.
the tool that is available and
Right.
yeah.
If I may ask you, I don't have a Mac
Mhm.
yet. How does it work? Do you think it's easier, better, or worse than Windows or Linux, or is it about all the same in terms of friendliness?
In terms of friendliness, I don't know. Everybody says that it's true user dedicated to the user and it's easy and it just works. But there were some definite difficulties when I was getting started with it, and that was just I think getting acclimated to it.
Ah,
Um, Closing out an app and it not actually closing. That was one of the most frustrating
oh,
things for me.
okay.
And really, what that is you have to actually quit the app.
Ah,
Um, some of the system settings were a little confusing at first, but not too bad. So I mean, I don't know. I hate to say it, but it does remind me a lot of what I've seen and used in Ubuntu. So
oh,
yeah. Well, I gave a coworker on Friday brought her computer to me, wanted some help with it, her personal computer, and I installed Ubuntu on it for her because she didn't have a copy of the Windows disk and would not boot.
okay.
So rather than pirating Windows, which I would really just not want to do,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
put
yeah.
Ubuntu on it. She said, "You know what? This looks like a Mac, and it's running faster than it was before,
Well,
and it's got free software along with it. Okay, I'll give it a shot."
you know what? I get many comments, well, what should I use? What's better, Windows? And of course I get Mac questions. And I'm like, I don't have a Mac yet. I'm sorry. But in terms of what's better, Windows, Linux, or whatever, you know what? Use what works. Use what you are comfortable with. That's the best advice that I give anybody, period. Now, gaming, from what I understand, and I mean, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong. I believe it's better in Windows versus Linux because the better graphics, the better choices. So I usually recommend Windows for gamers, but I don't game on computers. I have my Xbox
Yeah.
360. So there you go.
Yeah.
Uh,
As in terms of gaming, Windows I think has the better selection of titles. I don't necessarily think it's that Windows games better than other OSs. I think it's
okay.
just that it's more prevalent, so the developers are developing for it primarily. OpenGL versus DirectX, I don't have the benchmarks on that. I think it's I think DirectX might have a little bit of an edge, but that's mainly because the drivers for the hardware that's really supported, the NVIDIA and the ATI drivers are uh, more developed on Windows. So
Okay.
I don't know. I have gamed on Linux. I've actually run Windows games in Linux and had excellent performance. Not as good as on Windows though. So
Okay.
yeah, the games that run natively on Linux, the ones that are developed for Linux or developed cross-platform, most of the time I do have a little bit better performance on Linux just because you don't have so much OS bloat in the background.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. Okay, fair enough. Okay, great. Yeah, I enjoy dual booting. I'm not quite there to replace Windows 7, honestly, with any kind of Linux because I think there's a phrase called bug regression. Right, okay.
Yeah.
The kind of, hey, this software doesn't work in this version, but it worked in the last one. Oh, it's one of those things. So I think Spatry asked me once. I did like an interview with him. He had me on the show, and I think the question was something like, if I was on a desert island. He says, I hate to put you on the spot, Toss, today, but if you're on the desert island, if you had to choose one, I'm like, great. Well, I'm going to be honest. Right now, and I mean now, not a year from now, I have to go with Windows 7 because like you said, it's not that bad. It's reliable, it's trustworthy. There is no bug regression thing, at least not that I've seen. And that was my answer. And to be quite honest, I have yet to have a single blue screen of death. I've yet to had a virus affect my system. I'm stunned. I don't know. You mentioned a few minutes ago that like it seems okay to use stable. That's where I'm at. Um,
Yeah, I mean the grand majority of the actually I have had a couple of blue screens with it, but it's usually either driver related or hardware related. In the one case I can remember offhand, I was installing a piece of open source software on it
okay.
that put some sort of a driver in. I don't know exactly what it was. It was the VLC Media Creator
Uh,
in a very early revision of it,
uh,
and it put something on the system that was just causing it to blue screen every time I would get going on something.
okay.
So I've removed that. It's been fine ever since.
Okay.
There are some definite bugs and quirkiness,
Okay.
especially in a directory an Active Directory environment.
Uh,
When you start messing with group policies and stuff, things
right.
aren't always consistent. But I think that a lot of that has to do with just being in a directory and having the replication between all the servers. And
Okay.
like I said, use the tool that works for you.
Right. Right. Right.
I used to be a little bit more hardcore and being more open, but I don't think I've ever really told somebody you have to use open source or you're a terrible
Right.
person or anything.
For those of you who don't use Windows 7, I'm saying you're bad. No, I'm just kidding.
You're terrible.
You're terrible. Um, the last Linux 18 we did, it was with Mr. Pope, the Ubuntu system, one of the system managers from Ubuntu. Nice chap. I had an issue. I don't know if you caught the last Linux 18, but I had an issue with let's see. I downloaded Ubuntu 11.10, and I check for hardware drivers. So I click the little green icon, and it's, oh, I have proprietary drivers available for my video card, tested by Ubuntu developers. I'm like, oh, okay. Click, download. It didn't work. It froze, and then I was unable to boot into Ubuntu. Windows 7 to the rescue. You know how I go into disk management and delete the Linux partitions and start over from scratch. So I cracked the joke to Mr. Pope. I said, Mr. Pope, you guys, I like Ubuntu 11.10. I think 12.04 is going to be great, but please stay away from ATI driver recommendations. And he kind of got a little chuckle out of that. But other than that, really Ubuntu 11.10, I don't recall. I told the Linux A team, I told them, well, you know what? I've never seen a blue screen of death, but I've seen a BSOD in Linux. I get bug screens of death. So yeah. But that was the driver issue. That wasn't really Ubuntu's
Yeah.
fault, I guess. I was trying to be fair about it. And then I did say one more thing. I said, Mr. Pope, why do Linux screencasting software, why is it awful? And he says, I know it all sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
thank you.
Kazam has gotten a little better, but it is still. Have you? Well, you said you don't have a Mac. There's a piece of software called ScreenFlow on the Mac, which is just ridiculous what it can do.
So
I
it's
mean,
good.
it.
So it's good.
Yes,
Oh, great. Okay.
it's a $100 piece of software that I have not and probably will not ever pay for,
Ah,
but it will record the screen, the audio from the system, the webcam, your microphone, whatever else you want to throw at it, and then give you a little editor to use afterwards.
is it stable and is it user friendly?
It is ridiculously stable
Okay.
and user friendly. I mean, you tell it to start, it pops up a little window and says, "What do you want to capture?" And then once you're done, you either hit a there's
Okay.
a key sequence to stop it, or you can hit a button on the
Okay.
tray at the top. I mean,
Well,
if you are on a Mac and you're wanting to screencast, that is by far the best way, in my opinion. If you're
sounds
on,
like a fair price then,
yeah,
maybe for what it does. I
oh
mean, I
yeah.
don't know. Okay.
I mean, everything on the Mac is a little more expensive than you'd find
Okay.
on Windows, and I know like Fraps on Windows is pretty decent and is only about what 30 $40 something like that.
Yeah, I use actually a little freebie screencaster software for Windows 7. It's stable. I haven't used it in a while. I think it's called BB Flashback, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. And you know what? It's fine. It's not full featured, so to speak. But you know what? It's free. There is a paid version, and it's fine. I don't think I ever had a crash on me, at least none that I recall. Nothing briefly. I mean, there's what Cam Studio, that's open source and free. That doesn't quite always work. But back on the Linux side, to be fair, I believe Mr. Pope said that he was working in conjunction with the Kazam developer to try and make it, I guess, the default screencaster for Linux, which I think would be great. It actually seems to work in 11.10. It's not always perfect, but it is getting better. So that's my answer. If anybody out there wants to try a Linux screencaster, if you are running 11.10, I believe it just now does work in 12.04 and Alpha 2, and I would imagine beta. It's not perfect, but it's free. And if they can get the bugs and get you know get this all finalized into the default screencasting software for Linux, I think that would be great. So sure.
It's definitely it's come a long way and giving you a lot more options in terms of what you can capture with it. It's well on its way to being something like ScreenFlow is on the Mac.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, give a try to Kazam. I mean, it seems to work for me. I've tried desktop recorder, Tabesti. I mean, a few other ones. They just don't work. And Mr. Pope said it best, I think, when he says, they're all just horrible. But Kazam is moving along, so we'll have to see as far as that goes. Okay. Any final thoughts there, Twill?
uh, things have been really busy, and I'm hoping things will clear up a little bit for me in the near future.
Hey, we would love to have you back as part of the non-limited Linux 18 show. I think I'll just upload this as just a simple, TosCast podcast. But
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
yeah,
Of course, time
we
will be tight over the next few weeks slash months with the house move and working on everything.
right.
But yeah, I mean, late in the evenings like this is definitely not a big deal to come up with some time to hang out.
Wonderful. Well, people know how they can reach me. Like I mean, as far as the viewers trying to reach you or trying in some way support you, what's the best way that they can do that for you?
The easiest way to reach me probably right now is through Twitter or Google Plus, twitter.com/slash This Week in Linux or Google Plus. The links are both on my channel. G+.2/Twill, TWIL.
Okay.
But yeah,
Good.
I'm reachable through just about anything.
Wonderful. One last thing that popped into my head. You had done a terrific tutorial. I believe it was either last year. It was that time of the year, the season where you were invited to do a little speech on Caden Live.
hmm
I think it was in Columbus, right?
Yeah, correct. That's been actually a couple of years back.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
From where I'm at, boy, time
yeah, they
flies.
flies. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm actually about 2.5 hours away from Columbus here where I
Oh,
live. But yeah, so I'm not that far. But
I'm about 3 hours away myself.
well, there you go. It's a
Yeah.
small world, right? We are spanning, well, I can't say spanning the globe. We are spanning the USA, but
Spanning a few states.
a few states, yeah. But I do remember you had actually posted a terrific tutorial on your channel about how to use Kden Live, and I actually learned something off that. So, folks, if you want a more complete look at Kden Live or a tutorial, it's a little bit old, but I think it may still be relevant, right, for
Oh
today?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's some things that have changed, and I've been considering revamping it. Just have not had the time.
Right, completely understandable. But folks, if you want to learn about Kden Live, I mean, as far as screencasting software, I recommend you try Kazam. As
hmm
far as a tutorial on Kden Live, please take a look at Twill's tutorial on the This Week in Linux channel.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
All right. I guess we can wrap it up. This was a lot of fun, even though it was only us two. Spatchy's probably going to get jealous. You didn't call me or whatever, but he did say he wasn't feeling well. We
Yeah.
have got to do this again. We kind of jab each other. I'll say Windows is better and Linux is this and that, and blue screens of death. Oh yeah, I get bug screen of death, and so on and so forth. But we'll have to do it together again. Quids Up wants to join. Quids Up wants to join in sometime. Again, the time zones. God, I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm trying, folks, to accommodate everybody, me and Spatry. But Quids Up wants to join in. That's great, Quids. If you're listening, I haven't forgotten. Sis admin girl, she's new. She's actually an administrator, system developer administrator out in California. So there's a
Hmm.
3 hour time zone difference. But she was in on the last Linux A team show, and very nice, charming young lady. She's actually on vacation, I believe, in Turkey for 2 weeks. So again, life happens. Trying to get everybody all at the same time. Tool knows what I'm talking about. So, and now you folks do. But
Hmm.
we will try to get everybody together. It's going to be impossible all at the same time, but I will try. Me and Spatry will try to get everybody on at some point on the show, if not an A-team podcast, maybe just regular podcast. So, on that note, thank you, sir, for joining me. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again in any capacity possible. Wish you the best of luck with your new purchase on the house, and of course, your family and kid. The best of luck. And on behalf of myself and Twill, thank you for joining us today or tonight, depending on when you watch this or listen to this. Don't forget to check out the terrific Twill This Week in Linux channel. And you know how I end my screencast. As always, we will catch you sometime in the future. Thank you.